This is the Connecticut Beekeepers Association, for some of you who may not know. And my name is Bill Hesbach. I'm one of the state's Eastern Apicultural Society's certified master beekeeper. And I've also done some training in the Montana beekeeping school. That's a little bit about me. And also I just got back from the Eastern Apicultural Society's annual meeting, and that was a nice time. And we learned a lot more about bees, but we still have a lot to go. We did manage to get our transparent colony cut open, and we were able to inspect it. We did find out that it had not only one queen, and it had two. So what occurred in that colony was it had a virgin queen, which I saw very much earlier. For some reason, that queen didn't get mated. And then I put a mated queen in that colony without knowledge, actually, of the fact that there was a unmated queen in there already. But since she didn't have real developed queen profile, the colony let her live. And so I found two queens in there, a virgin and the mated queen. The mated queen was going about her business, laying beautifully. So I took the virgin home, and I wanted to do some microscopy on her to see if her spermatheca, her, the organ where she keeps all of her sperm, I wanted to make sure that was clear, that there weren't any sperm in it, so I could verify that she was the virgin. So I did. I brought her home and I dipped her in a little bit of alcohol, and then opened up her abdomen with beautiful surgical scissors that I have, and proceeded to look for her spermatheca. I found it, and everything was fine. Oxalic acid and glycerin Varroa treatment. And from what I understand, that is likely to be in Better Bees' hands while we speak here. Don't know who they'll distribute it to or how I'll get some. I'm sure I will. And so we'll try to get some and trial it out. But anyway, that's going to be a new Varroa treatment that we have. And it will be a treatment that we can use to maintain Varroa. It won't be a first kill or final kill treatment. That's where we got off on the wrong track with Varroa and glycerin treatments, because I think we thought in the beginning, when we put those two ingredients together and then we let them time release in the colony over a period, that it would kill all of Varroa in the colony. It does not do that, but what it does is it maintains a very low level of Varroa in the colony all season, and that's what you want to do with it. Then you can use a final kill formula at the end of the season, maybe oxalic acid in a vapor, or you could actually put formic acid in, or thymol or whatever. So that's really promising that we will have that. I have not been notified by the state entomologist yet, but there's a woman named Wolf. I don't even know her first name. I got this from the New Hampshire bee inspector, who's a friend of mine, and he asked me if I knew her, and I said, knew who? And he said, yeah, she's been hired and she's on the road and doing inspections. So I don't know. So we'll see. I'm going to wait for the official announcement. You've been warned. We have a state inspector. All right, so let's move on to the bloom calendar. So you're seeing it for August. Now, I didn't update this since last year. I actually should have, because there were some blooms that came out earlier this year. Well, right in the beginning of August, Clethra comes out. Now, there's two versions of that. There's a cultivar that people plant around their yard and various other places. And there's also wild Clethra, and that it's big down on the shoreline, from what I understand. I've never seen it, but it bloomed really nicely this year. And they tell me that they can make a crop of Clethra honey down in the shore. So if you have that around you, it's also called summer sweet, and you can look it up. It's still blooming, actually, in my area. So it's a sustainer bloom as far as I'm concerned in my area. And when I say a sustainer bloom, I mean it's not a major flow. It's something that the bees can use to keep the brood box, to keep them from tearing into their stores. All right, so Joe Pye weed is out. I don't see a lot of bees work. Did I see bumblebees on it? There was a rumor that Joe Pye weed had black pollen, and it doesn't, because I went through and checked it. And I never found any black pollen in it. But anyway, so it's out there. You can see it's a beautiful flower, nice purple top. The Korean BB tree, if you have one, should have been blooming almost all of August. It's an incredible source of nectar and pollen for bees. Mine has been out for, I don't know, what's it, the 16th or something today, and mine's been out since about August 4th. So no, today's the 15th. So, and it still has blooms, it's still attracting bees. It's almost like there's a swarm in that tree. It's a great thing to plant if you have intentions of staying a beekeeper for any period of time, because it grows really quickly. I think mine is only 6 years old. It is, I don't know, 25, 30 feet tall. Okay, both forms of jewelweed are out. Both the yellow and the spotted jewelweed are both out. It's a great little plant to watch your bees collect nectar from. It's a real interesting strategy. The nectar areas are way deep in the flower, and the anthers drag pollen across the center of the bee's back. It's very difficult for a bee to clean that part out. So when it goes to a female flower, it's almost guaranteed it will pollinate. And you should look for it. It's also called a touch me not, or because it gives these little seed pods out later on. And as soon as you touch them, they explode. Native Americans used to use jewelweed as a source of food. They would go collect those little seeds and eat them. But for you, it's a really good source for your bees. And it'll be out for quite a while now. And it's a little sustainer. It's nothing that'll give you a big crop of honey, but it will keep your bees sort of nourished, and they get some pollen from it, so it'll be great. Look for that racing stripe coming down on your bee's back. That's a sure sign that they are working jewelweed. They come back with this nice little racing stripe right down their back of pollen, yellow pollen. Arrowleaf terethum, it's in the buckwheat family. It's a native, and it is a great little plant in wet areas. You may not have ever noticed your bees on it or even heard of this plant, but it is there, and your bees are using it. So again, a sustainer, not a big deal. But it's out. Purple loosestrife made a real push last year, but the biological got hold of it, and it's been quilled back this year. I have a variety in my yard that doesn't spread. It's not an invasive, but it really attracts bumblebees, and you can grow it as an ornamental, and it won't do anything to the environment. And it's really fun to watch it because it gets a lot of pollinators on it of all kinds. Dogbane, one of my favorites this time of year. Not a big crop this year, but it generally is. Dogbane is in the milkweed family, and it looks just like milkweed leaf-wise. It doesn't fool monarch butterflies, but it is in the milkweed family. I'm looking for knotweed, and I can't find it, and there's no goldenrod out either. So in my area, goldenrod is slow. I don't know if it's going to come out. I hope it is. I mean, it should be out by now, and because I have like 40 acres of it that I count on for the fall. But if it doesn't happen, I'll have to feed out. But either way, it's not out yet. Are you folks seeing it? I mean, I'm sure there different parts of the state have knotweed in goldenrod. Has anybody seen it?
We have it in Guilford.
Okay, great.
Well, the goldenrod is starting to come out in Guilford now.
Yeah, there's a couple different, there's about 7 different varieties. Goldenrod isn't productive. The first version that comes out grows pretty much in the dry areas of open fields, and it fools beekeepers because they say, okay, goldenrod is out, but that's a really early variety, and it doesn't produce nectar, so bees won't work it. But if your bees are working anything you see, it's the goldenrod that puts out nectar. The real telltale sign of whether or not your goldenrod is going to actually put out nectar is to look for little shiny black flower beetles on it. They're really tiny, pinhead size, black beetles. They live in the soil, and they climb up the stem, and they will work the plant. They do no damage to it at all. But if you see those, that means that goldenrod is going to produce nectar. So because they don't fool around, those little flower beetles, they go after only plants that produce nectar, and only that plant that when it produces nectar. All right, thistle is out around, and you will see also some other sort of boncet and Russian sage and some kind of moth mullein. Those are all plants that I've seen my bees on. So you can see it don't really have in August a big flow at all if you don't get knotweed and goldenrod. So the rest of that stuff is just like interesting to see your bees on, but it won't make you honey. But goldenrod and knotweed, if they bloom at about the same time, and they will usually, then you've got a nice combination of floral sources. And your bees, if you get in a year where it's really producing, goldenrod is really producing, you could smell it before you get to your colonies, and they can put on a super honey.
We have mountain mint in the yard.
Oh,
Mountain mint that the bees are crazy on.
oh man, you're so lucky. I mean, plant that if you want to see, if you want entertainment, plant mountain mint because the bees will, it must have some caffeine in it. It's such a beautiful thing to watch, don't you think?
Yes, but you're saying they don't get any
Oh no, mountain mint, yeah, but they won't make a crop of honey off. It's not enough for that. It's not enough for that. And like, if you had a ton of it, I guess they might, so, but I wouldn't count on it for a flow.
So Chip Barth is asking about Nosema, how to clean or sterilize the hive after treating, how to sterilize his hive tools.
Oh, okay. The best way to sterilize your hive tools is blue flame. All right, that's the for sure is the one. So you heat it up with a torch. You can use a little torch to light your smoker too. So if you want to make an investment in one of those little butane torches, it's a good idea, especially if you have concerns about sanitary practices, and you should. So you should make certain that you're always keeping your yard tools specific to that yard. And then if you have a colony that gets in trouble, it has a high Nosema count or something like that, then you can go ahead and use a blue flame. Now you can also use Clorox or alcohol, but you have to remember with both of those substances, your hive tool has to be immersed in it, and it has to stay in there long enough for the ingredient, sodium hypochlorite and all of that in alcohol to work. And it doesn't work immediately. So you can't just dip it, and do not dip it in this, the old school, we have a bunch of bee lore that is no longer relevant. It actually wasn't relevant when it was active bee lore. And they would always say, put it in the smoker, which doesn't get hot enough. It doesn't cover the whole tool, or put it in the ground. There's about 1 million different microbes in the first inch of soil. So you don't want to do that. And to sterilize it properly, I would say blue flame, or if you're going to use alcohol, or a Clorox solution, leave it on the surface for just a bit. You need to leave it on for about 3 minutes. Nosema spores, we've learned that they're good for like 24 months. So they can be around for a while. Nosema itself can be around in your colony for a couple years.
So John has his hand up.
Yeah, John.
Hey, Bill, it's actually Gary. How you doing?
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
I'm with my dad at their house. Hey, got a question for you. And
Yeah.
I apologize if I'm jumping on a line here in the queue of asking questions. I've read your articles about treating for mites. I listened to your podcast.
Yeah.
Right. The question that I've got, because you addressed nukes and box bees very well. My question is around oxalic acid vapor treatments for mature hives.
Yeah.
I treated Sunday. Now, a lot of the articles I see, it says do a 4-day or a 4 treatment 5 days apart.
Yeah.
Right. For a period of 20 days.
Yeah.
You agree? What's your thought on that?
Well, my thought is that it's probably not going to be anywhere near as effective as some other treatment that you can get. Like, this is a perfect time of year where you can use now.
Yeah.
For the next week, you can use formic acid. You can use Thymol. I wouldn't suggest use Hopguard at this point, but using oxalic acid in those intervals has a non-proven theory that you will get the emerging mites that are coming out of cells, and you'll kill them. So it sounds good in theory, and some people swear by it. And what you'll do is you'll knock down the population a little bit. Don't expect it to be your only treatment. It's worth doing if you want to do it. But what you're going to do there is you're going to knock down your mites to a certain level, but you won't kill them all. You won't get those real high kills like you get with thymol or formic acid this time of year, which will give you 95% kills.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So it's you can do it. And if you're confident that your mite counts are low, you're fine to do it as a maintenance. But you have to do it but I would suggest you do it in those intervals.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got formic at the house, so I'll probably just end up going this weekend. I'll put the formic in all 21 hives. And
yeah, formic's your best bet right now.
all right, copy that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work though.
Yeah, thanks. Want to come over?
Yeah, thanks.
So Anthony Antonucci is asking if you can share anything about the recent EAS in Maryland.
Well, EAS in Maryland, I gave 2 talks on my side. I gave one on thermoregulation and the other one on pollen. The conference covers a variety of subjects. This year, a lot of research was discussed. We had great lectures from Dave Peck, who is the chief scientist at Better Bee, and also the head of the Eastern Apiculture Society's technical program at this point. So he's doing all the master beekeeping tests. He's our chief scientist, and he did a wonderful talk on bee digestion, and we learned some things from that. We have wonderful talks on biology of bees from Debbie Delaney, and a couple of other folks gave it. And then one of the most interesting talks, Mark Gingrich, who is the Pennsylvania president. He uses drones. He uses a DJI Mavic, which is a drone, and that drone he uses to find drone congregation areas. He puts queen pheromone, he hangs queen pheromone down off of it, and he finds where his drone congregations areas. It's absolutely fascinating. We're going to have him talk to the club, and you'll be able to hear how he does that. And he also does something really interesting. He does a lot of instrumental insemination on queens. So he wants to know, he doesn't want to fool around with trying to gather drones at the front entrance in the evening to figure out if they're fertile or not. So he will capture drones on sticky paper while he's flying his drone. So he puts the queen pheromone above, and trailing below that on his drone is a sticky paper. And the drones go up after the queen pheromone from the drone, and they get stuck to the paper, and he collects a bunch of drones, brings them back, and milks the sperm out of them and uses them for instrumental insemination. I think it's a brilliant little technique. We should know where the drone congregation areas are in our own state. It's
right.
kind of fun to find them if the colony is replacing a queen or something like that, and they have a virgin that they need to get mated. She'll come out of a cell and then hang around for a while her pheromone profile gets up to speed. Once she's been recognized by the bees in that colony, she'll start taking her mating flights. She may go out 3 or 4 times in a 5-day period or a 6-day period, mate with 25, 30 drones, some as high as 40. But the average probably around 12 to 15 drones she'll mate with. But she flies away from her own the drone flight patterns that are coming out of her own apiary. She flies in the opposite direction, and she'll fly farther than those drones will fly out of her own apiary. So that sort of makes it almost guaranteed that she'll be mating with drones that are not from her own colony. And then she mates and then comes back. So we'll get some aerial shots of that, and we'll see what happens.
A late season swarm
Yeah.
over 3 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah.
I went into the hive right after the swarm, and I did see capped queen cells,
Yeah.
which I left alone.
Yeah,
put them back and covered it back up. And then just this week, we went back in and did an inspection, didn't see anything.
Yeah.
No activity at all, no evidence of a queen or a laying queen. My question was, if there was if one of those capped cells was a virgin queen, how long would it take for her to emerge, fly to a drone congregation area, mate, and come back and start laying?
8 to 14 days.
Okay, so it's been 3 weeks.
From the swarm.
Okay, so it's been actually today, it's 3 weeks today that it swarmed. And on Tuesday, or actually Monday of this week, went in, didn't see anything else, nothing happening at all.
Yeah, remember we had some really horrible weather, right?
That's true.
And she wouldn't be flying during that time, but if she misses the window when she can fly, she won't go out and mate again. But you should be able to see her in there. So now you have another colony, right, Joe?
Yes.
Put a frame with eggs in there. Make sure that that colony is absolutely, if you're suspecting that it might be queenless,
Right.
put a frame of eggs in there. It has to have eggs, and they'll make emergency cells if it's queenless. They'll do that right away.
We did that on Tuesday.
And what happened?
I don't know. I haven't looked yet.
Okay, so you got to look. It's plenty of time, right? You did it on Tuesday. You'll have cells in there right now.
Okay, so if they're making cells, that means it's definitely queenless.
Yes, on the frame you put in. Now forget about the
Right.
other cells that are there. They just haven't gotten around to tearing them down yet.
Right. Okay.
So just ignore those. Hopefully you mark that frame you put in there.
Yep.
All right, Joe, you're on the right path, man. That's exactly what you do.
So I gotta go in there tomorrow then and look.
Yeah, you could have went in 2 days after you put it in.
Okay, I thought it'd take a few days for them to make cells.
Yeah, no, they know they're queenless. If they were queenless, if it's been 3 weeks, that's 21 days since the day of the swarm.
Yes.
That's the outside limit.
Yeah.
You got to do something right away, or else they'll go over to laying workers. Now, so for the folks that don't know what laying worker colony is, it's when a colony is hopelessly queenless, it will stay in that state for a period of time, sort of a patient waiting period to see if another queen develops. But while they're in that state, there are regular old worker bees, females, that their ovaries are beginning to enlarge, and they only have a few ovarials, but they're capable of being able to lay eggs. Of course, they can't fertilize that egg, so all they can do is lay drones, and they'll lay drone eggs in regular worker cells, and you get this whole population of little tiny drones. They're cute, and they're totally viable, but they just can't fly as fast as a big full drone, so they never really get a mating opportunity. Although if they did get a mating opportunity, they'd be fine. About 20% of the colony swarms occur in this time of year. They call them suicide swarms because they have very little chance of being able to survive. Think about what they have to do. They have to find a cavity to go into. They probably already know where that is, so that they might be able to do. Then they have to build wax, and they have to get a sufficient population of bees alive, just running right out of town, right? I mean, so we only have till the middle of October for forage. And for that queen, if she laid an egg the day she left, still 21 days till she gets a new crop of bees. By that time, the old bees that left with her in the swarm, they're aging out. A real problem for bees that swarm this time of year. Your beekeeping style, your management style, and what you should strive for is an observational style of beekeeping, meaning that you act in accordance to what you see in the colony. Like, for instance, if there's 250 pounds of honey on a colony, and you also have 60 pounds in the top brood box, you're okay harvesting that honey. So that would be an observation you would make, like Gina's saying. She knows she has her finger on the pulse of that process. If 10% of the cells on a frame are not capped, then, and the rest of them are capped, and the honey in those cells is 17%. You're going to be able to use that frame and uncap it, and you're fine, because there you only have a little bit of honey, a nectar on there that's out of range, and it's probably not going to be really out of range, maybe be 20% or 21%. And the rest of it's down around 17. You're going to average somewhere around 18 and a half. You'll be fine. All right.
So Bill D wants you to talk about the lanternfly and the honey that produces from it.
Yeah. So there is nectar-based honey, which is the kind I produce. And lots of beekeepers want to produce that. I mean, rich floral flavors, silky, smooth, creamy finishes, just absolutely gorgeous stuff. So that's the kind of honey you want to make. Now, there are sap-sucking insects, aphids being one of them. And aphids are always around. They're on black locust trees. They're always in the environment, and they're always sucking up large quantities of sap for their size. And then they excrete this sticky, sweet excrement. Right now, it's just going right through the actual bug. Now, this is the same for lanternflies. They're after the protein. That's what they need. They need a certain amount of carbohydrate, but then they also need the protein. But sap for a little bug like that has so much sugar in it that they just excrete it. Now, once it comes out of the bug, it's not nectar. It doesn't taste like nectar. So if your bees are going to collect spotted lanternfly, we call it the honeydew. That's what it's referred to. And they put a nice name on it, but it's actually excrement from bugs. It changes the taste of your honey. Now, it changes it, in my opinion, in a very negative way. But other people have convinced themselves that they like it. Now, I've had some lanternfly honey that you could eat, but it still has a big acid back. And, if you're used to making a nice, beautiful honey, spotted lanternfly honey is not a good deal. Now, they are coming on to our state. When I was just down in Maryland, you couldn't walk outside without one landing on you. They were all over the place in Maryland. And Maryland's climate's not much different than ours, so you can expect a fairly decent infestation of lanternfly in our area. And in that case, we'll have to see what it does to our honey. Now, your bees will go after that stuff, especially hard during a dearth. So lanternfly's host tree in our area is the tree of heaven, and there's plenty of them around. I mean, they're just all over the place. So it's not like spotted lanternfly doesn't have a food source when it moves into Connecticut in big quantities. We're seeing them here. People are crushing them down south, and we're seeing them. I haven't seen one in Cheshire. I think Armando saw one in Meriden. So so they're around.
What do we want to say about yellow jackets threatening our hives?
Well, they won't. They can't if the colony's
Are
population.
strong, of course. But what happens if you've got a medium to weak hive? What do we do?
What you can do about them is reduce the entrance down to 1 inch and make sure that you have enough guard bees, another population of bees in that colony to guard them. Now, if you're in a situation where your colony's weak, so weak this time of year that it can't defend itself against yellow jackets, you got to combine it with a stronger colony. You got to get it out of there and pinch the queen, because she's not a queen that's been able to manage a colony that's strong enough to give off, because a strong colony, forget about yellow jacks, they never get in. They try, and one might get in, but it doesn't live long inside the colony. So you can see that in the transparent colonies. You'll see them go try to get into the entrance, and then they're just beat off by the guard bees. And the other thing is you can catch queens. They're very localized in their nesting habits. They generally nest in the ground. If it's a bald-faced hornet, they're not usually a pest that bothers bee colonies that much. Yellow-legged hornet, of course, which is we've seen in Georgia recently, and if they make their way up the coast, then they might. I think they're going to be restricted by temperature, but if they do get their way up here, then that's a bee-eating machine. They will go out and kill thousands of bees in your colony, and they can overrun it and destroy it. But that one's not there yet. Regular yellow jackets, as I say, they nest in the ground, and they're localized, so they're around where your colony is. If they're after your colony, that means a queen has successfully made a underground colony somewhere pretty close to where your apiary is. So your job is to catch the queens in the spring. A mated queen will be the only thing that's left alive in the fall. And she will then abandon the nest and go overwinter in the ground somewhere. Now, that queen, she's a fertile queen. That queen will come out, emerge in the spring, early spring, and they're the only ones out. They're huge. They're much bigger than a little yellow jacket, so they're very big. That's when you trap them. You put out around your apiary traps. They have pheromone traps. You can buy them. They're very effective. You put a little mixture that they give you, and then you can throw a little tuna fish or something in there. You get it really ugly inside that thing, and it will trap out all the queens in your area, and you'll have very, very little yellow jacket pressure this time of year.